Welcome back. Let's build. Imagine if your entire software development lifecycle could run like a well-oiled team, but instead of people, it's AI agents collaborating together. That's what Claude Code Subagents make possible. Subagents are specialized roles you can spin up inside Claude Code, each focused on a different responsibility, just like members of a real engineering team. In my project, you'll see I'll use subagents across the full SDLC. For planning, I'll have a product manager to gather requirements, a software architect to design the system, and a reviewer to double-check the specs and design. Then comes implementation. Here I'll spin up a Backend Engineer subagent to handle APIs and databases, a Frontend Engineer to handle the UI, and a deployment engineer to get everything live, and of course a reviewer to keep the quality bar high. By giving each subagent a clear role, the workflow feels like an actual team sprinting together, except it's all AI powered. This lets me move from idea to deployment faster while keeping collaboration and checks and balances built in right. So here we're getting started. What I'm doing now is just creating a .mcp.json file to load in all the MCP servers that I want. In my previous video, I kind of showed a more in-depth overview of how to add some of these, and the two main ones that I'm going to work with today are HTTP fetch for fetching web pages, and Notion, because I have Notion MCP enabled as well. So I'll be setting these up in this file. That way, anytime someone runs Claude in my repository, it would automatically pick up these two MCP servers and try to connect and load them in. Okay, so we have that file. Let's go ahead and try to run Claude. And as we can see, we have two MCP servers trying to connect. Give it a second, and now we're good. Both of them are ready for use. All right, so let's go ahead and navigate to our .claude agents folder. And what we're gonna begin to do now is define the structure of our agents and specify the agents that we'll be using. So I'm going to create a few directories for each of those agents, and then we'll define them here. So we have backend, deployment, front end, and planner. Planner is going to consist of a few agents, and then the other ones will be pretty specific to the agent category it's in. So we'll have a backend engineer, we'll have a front end engineer, and a deployment engineer. And we'll get into the specs here in just a bit. So that looks good. We just now need to create our planner. So for the planner, that's going to consist of about 3 different subagents. We're going to have a product manager, a reviewer, and a software architect. The reviewer is pretty generic because I plan on using the reviewer not only for planning but for reviewing code, and we'll get into that in just a bit. So here I've pulled up Cursor, and I'm going to start defining my backend engineer subagent. And the format to do that is you need a name and you need a description about that agent in this format. And everything below that, you can provide more details, relevant to your agent. and so for this example, I'm building out a backend engineer. And the goal of this project is to essentially build a CRM from planning to execution. And so I want my backend engineer to be, specialized in building enterprise-grade CRM applications. I wanted to be very familiar with different patterns, different security measures, scalability, all that stuff that comes into play when building out CRM backends. And so I'm just providing, a bit of description here, things that I think will be relevant. Now, you could keep this generic. You could just say you're a specialized backend engineer and let it, kind of come up with what is needed during the time of your prompt. But in this case, and for all my agents, I'm going to be very specific and talk only about CRM applications. I want them to be specialized in their own context for CRM applications. And that's what I'll kind of be doing here. All right, I went ahead and copy pasted for all my other agents. The code will be in the repo if you want to check it out. But for now, what I want to do is kind of design the system out. I want to diagram exactly how these agents will be communicating. This is, I want to say, like the agentic software development lifecycle, if you will. And so we're going to get started with Plant UML. If you're not familiar with Plant UML, you can check out the website. I'll post a link. There's various types of diagrams that you can find there. For the purposes of this project, we'll be doing an activity diagram. So what do we want to do here? I'm going to use the materia theme. I like that one. I'm going to go ahead and create the title of our diagram. And so, like I said, this is like the agentic software development lifecycle. And we'll go ahead and create that title. Now, to preview Plant UML, you can download the extension here within Cursor for Plant UML, and it'll help you get started. So that looks good. Let's start with, typically you get a project start, right? You get the feature request or the project request. So we're going to create that. And let's next create a partition. And this is going to be part of the planning phase, right? So we're discovering planning phase. Yeah, so this is kind of, the initial steps. So, all right. So yeah, we're gonna get started with the product manager agent. And so as part of this agent, we're gonna define requirements for the project essentially. Let me add a note here. I'm gonna put it to the right of this section. And so, let's be a little bit more explicit. The product manager will define or create user stories and acceptance criteria. It'll define success metrics and KPIs, business case, ROI analysis, and this is called stakeholder agreements as well. Okay, great. So now what I want to do, I want to, like I said, I want to use the generic review agent that we created to ensure not only the planning but other cycles are reviewed, whether it's code, whether it's planning, whatever it is. But for this instance, we're validating the requirements from the product manager, and so we're checking for completeness, we're checking for business alignment. Just validating several things that has come out of the product manager's initial requirements. And so what I'm doing here is a conditional to check And this is where we'll go back and forth, right? I'm gonna let these agents go back and forth and say, hey, are these requirements approved? And the reviewer is either gonna say, yeah, they look good, or it's gonna suggest some changes. So we're gonna iterate on the requirements. And if there are changes, the product manager will get back and start making those, suggested changes until the reviewer says it's good to go. That's what this little loop is that was just created. Next, let's go ahead and move on to the next phase. Let's say everything has been completed. So I want to create a partition for architecture and design. I'm also going to go ahead and create the partition for implementation. That's when we're actually building. But for the next phase, we want to actually start to design out the architecture, right? And so we're going to use a software architect agent to do that. Let me add a note here, be a little bit more explicit what we want to do. So this agent is going to specify the technology stack, ensure we're using best practices with good system design patterns, picking the data models, the relationships, also considering integration and scalability when building it out. And then again, we're using the reviewer here, but in this case, we're actually validating the architecture. So what does that mean exactly? So coming from like the perspective of our stakeholders, and also as a technical expert, we're gonna check if everything checks out about our system architecture. Check out the complexity, the security, all that stuff is part of the review cycle. And again, we'll add this conditional to check. If we're good, we'll continue. If not, the software architect agent will continue to make changes to the design until it's ready for implementation. And that's what we're doing here. So we're gonna iterate architecture, and the software architect agent is going to refine the design. Great, it's looking pretty good. We got our conditionals in. Let's go ahead. Yep, just double checking here. Okay. Yeah, so let's go ahead and go to the implementation phase. For this, I'm going to create almost a parallel execution strategy here during implementation. Now, I don't we'll see once we actually get into calling the prompts if this will work, or if we're going to call one by one. Later on, once our project is mature, we can probably have these agents dedicated to separate modules, focusing on those modules, not interfering with anything else in the code. In that case, this will be good for, parallel execution between backend and front end, or multiple front ends, whatever it may be. I'm just going to diagram this out, kind of showing that. So we've defined the Backend Engineer agent, and that's going to implement everything from database schema, API points, business logic, all that stuff. And we're going to create a fork here to also define our front-end engineer agent. And it's going to implement the front end, the UX, UI, all that stuff. Let's add another note here for that. So it's all our UI components. It's our user workflows. If we have a real-time system, how do we update that? How do we work with that? Any visualization and performance optimizations as well that we can do on the front end. So as you can see, these two could, in theory, run parallel, or a series of agents could run in parallel. What you want to think about is if they're going to interfere with each other in any way, and try to prevent that, or run them sequentially if that's the case. And again, we're using the reviewer agent. This is going to perform code quality checks on the actual implementation. This is quality assessment, security validation, performance review, all that stuff, and ensure that we have working code as well. It's a very important piece. And again, another conditional just to kind of show kind of the cycle here between the reviewer and any issues that need to be fixed, whether it's from the back end or the front end. We're going to have kind of a loop here to make those updates. So let's take a look at everything here and just make sure our diagram makes sense. And again, the code for this will be in the GitHub repo. I think you can take if it's hard to see here, you can take a closer look at the repo. Lastly, we're going to create the deployments and operations phase. This is going to be our deployment agent. And essentially, this agent is going to help set up the infrastructure in which we will, deploy, also set up the CI/CD pipeline, any infrastructure provisioning, monitoring, alerting, etc., all that stuff. And also security configuration. And that's what this deployment engineer does. And once more, we'll use that reviewer agent to kind of validate our deployment engineer, just ensuring we have deployment readiness. We have operational procedures, we have security compliance, all that stuff. So just adding a few more points there. And you already know it, another conditional just to kind of go back and forth between these two agents until it's looking good. So we'll address issues and deployment engineer agent will fix any issues. And I think that's it. We're going to just go ahead and wrap this up. We're going to deploy to production. We're then going to monitor and maintain. And I think that's about it. So let's go ahead and put a stop to this diagram, and this looks pretty good. Just doing one more check, but I think, yeah, this looks pretty good. I think we're ready to actually start building now. All right, so let's go and switch to the terminal here. We're going to run Claude, and let's check out our agents available. So everything looks pretty good here. We have all 6 agents ready to go. So now it's the next step where we're actually going to implement or begin the process of implementing the entire agentic lifecycle here, from design to actual implementation. So we're starting with the product manager. This is going to help us create the work needed to build out our CRM. So I'm providing some information here, and you'll notice how Claude will be able to automatically find and use the product manager subagent by just specifying the name. We'll also be iterating between the product manager and the reviewer until everything looks good. And lastly, since I have Notion hooked up, I'm going to store all the user stories and requirements in Notion. I'm going to create a new page there as well for this project. I'm just going to call it CRM project, and this will be the results of what the product manager produces. And so we'll give this a little bit, and let's see kind of how how the to-dos end up. So it's looking pretty good. It's telling me it's going to use the product manager agent to create the initial specs, and then the reviewer to review the product manager output, which is exactly what I wanted. And it'll iterate between both agents until requirements are approved. Now, I didn't specify what the approval criteria was. I'm really leaving this to be open-ended. I'm really curious what Claude will produce here. And again, if you're curious to seeing the specs, they're on GitHub. They're here. They have a little bit more detail, but like I said, everything is CRM based. We're trying to build a CRM application. And yeah, as you can see, the agent right there, the product manager agent's already kicking it off and creating the CRM requirements. And so we'll let this just, work through it. Great. So now we've written out the spec. The next step is to use that reviewer agent now. So that agent's actually going to review the output. And there you see it kick off, and it's reviewing the CRM PRD here. It's reading in the file. So it looks like it's stored a product requirements doc locally, and it's just reading that to kind of review, and these look pretty good in terms of the new to-dos that it's created. It's going to really kind of go through everything and ensure this passes whatever kind of validation it kind of comes up with. So I'm really curious to see how it also terminates. Like when is the review good enough? What is that going to look like? So we're going to find all that out pretty shortly here. So we'll let this chug along. All right, so it looks like the reviewer has actually provided some feedback. And here's where, we're just letting this run. And so it's going to kick it back to the product manager. It's going to revise the PRD. So I had an issue there. It's going to try again. It's going to revise that PRD and just go back and forth. So again, let's just let this run. Let's let this go back and forth how many ever times, and we'll check back once it's complete. All right, and I think we're at the final steps here. Yep. So reviewer just finished. It's great. Yeah, so the requirements have been approved by the reviewer. So now we're going to move on to the next step, which is storing the all the information about the project in Notion. So we'll go ahead and do that. All right, so yep, at this point we're just storing the user stories and requirements in Notion. And I think that looks good. We have a new Notion page as well. And that's a summary of the work completed. So looks pretty good. I think what we can do is let's go ahead and check Notion. Let's see what we're getting. So we're going to pull that up. And 1 second, here we go. Okay, great. So this is a brand new page. We have an overview, status, some timeline documents. I'm not going to go through everything, but just at a high level, you can see we've actually produced quite a bit of information here, from product requirements doc to implementation and timeline details. We have several different subpages as well within our document. So yeah, even the user stories are broken down. We have good information here. We have a product vision, product mission. So yeah, lots of great stuff. Let's see what else we have. Target users. Yeah, even an MVP roadmap and prioritization document here. So it's probably not perfect, but it's and already some formatting issues here. But it's something to go off of, especially if you're just trying to do some sort of rapid development, right? This is pretty good. We have several documents that we can use as kind of a skeleton or something to work off of. So yeah, it looks pretty good. All right, so let's continue. We're gonna go ahead and go to the next step of this project, and we're gonna use the software architect to actually design out the system architecture, given the user stories and all the product docs that we have in Notion. And so we're going to be very specific here, and let's go take a look at the CRM project page. So the software architect will go and read that using MCP for Notion, understand the requirements, and then again we will use the reviewer to kind of ensure business objective alignment. Now, since the last review cycle took a bit, I'm going to head and limit this to 2 review cycles. I also want to store artifacts in Notion. And then if there are some architecture diagrams, I want them in Plant UML. If you recall, we used Plant UML earlier to create our kind of activity diagram of the agentic software lifecycle. And so I want all future diagrams in that format. I'm going to be very curious to see how well Claude Code can create those diagrams, as I haven't specified too much context about Plant UML other than the diagram that I've created. So we're going to see how well it can actually handle that task. So we're going to let this run. All right, checking back in. We've just about wrapped it up. We have now a new system architecture document. So it's writing that out. Let's see what else it produces here. Yeah, so also and right above we see that the reviewer has identified some concerns, and so we're letting the software architect kind of resolve those as well. So at most we're doing 2 review cycles and then just proceeding. And so at this step we're creating the Plant UML diagrams, and looks like it's going to read through the architecture document again, just to ensure it's creating the appropriate diagrams. And so we'll give it a second here. It looks okay. So again, we're gonna open these up, see how well they created Plant UML diagrams. But for now, we're just gonna go ahead and say yes to everything here. All right, looks like all the diagrams were created. Everything looks good. Here's just kind of a summary of what was created, and also some of the artifacts now stored in Notion. So it looks pretty good here. Great. So yeah, at this point, let's just check out what the diagrams look like, if they render, if they make sense. So off the bat, a good sign. Our first one shows no errors with plant UML. That means that the syntax is correct. It looks pretty good. You know, we have a breakdown of different components here, probably what the software architect has planned out. You know, we have API layer, business logic layer, middleware layer, so everything for the back end. We also have the front end. Let's take a look at, we also have the authentication flow. So we have kind of a sequence diagram here of that. Again, you know, I'm not going to go into great detail here to check if everything is correct. Obviously, this is a quick demo. If I was going to productionize this, you know, we take a very, very close look at how this is kind of working and diagrammed out. But for now, you know, the sequence diagram looks good. It renders no errors from plant UML. We also have a, you know, database schema. That's great. Kind of some thoughts around that. Some relationships here as well. So again, checking if this renders, looks good. You know, we won't be too picky for now. And then kind of deployment architecture diagram. And again, this one, there's a lot here, but it renders, you know, has different components. So I'm pretty happy with that right now. All right, let's dive into our project. Let's now start implementing the code. So we're going to use the Backend Engineer first to build out the backend logic. And it's going to reference the architecture guide in Notion. And now that we have diagrams, and you know, it's going to try to take a look at any diagrams produced as well. Let me see if I can tweak this prompt just a little bit here. I want to ensure that, you know, we meet our business objectives, and also specify the page to look at. Now I have already a few pages in Notion, so I want to make sure that I'm specifying the CRM project, and also specifying the diagrams location, which it created a folder diagrams in my code base. To try and avoid some more limits on usage, I'm going to try to build the simplest form of the MVP. You know, we can always build the other components later, but we want to just get basic functionality working. And same thing for the front-end engineer. We're going to then use that agent to build out the front-end logic, and it's going to have to hook into whatever the output of the backend engineer is. And one more time, we're going to use this reviewer to kind of ensure the quality of the code is good from both the backend and the front end, and also that, you know, it works. I'm limiting it to one review cycle. Again, I'm trying to avoid hitting limits, but you can let this run as long as you want, or as many review cycles as you feel is sufficient. For now, I'm just limiting it to one. I'm explicitly telling Claude to implement this in my code base, my current code base. I've had issues before where it would maybe output another document in Notion, or you know, another markdown document explaining what it thinks it's going to implement, but I want this to actually start implementing the logic. So let's let this chug along and see what we get. So as you'll notice, we actually hit a limit earlier. I had to wait a few hours to proceed. So, you know, I'm kicking this back off and you know, trying to run this again. So this is kind of what I was talking about. I think I hit my limits earlier with some of the other prompts as well. So yeah, let's let this run. We'll check back in a bit to see if it did what what is expected, but the to-dos look right. We have the backend engineer doing the MVP backend logic, then the front-end engineer, and then reviewer kind of going back and forth. So we'll let this process for now. All right, so this actually did complete a while ago, and there were some errors. There's quite a few errors actually that we had to kind of debug through. I've scrolled up a little bit to some of the logs that I had and some of the prompts that I had to fix the errors. While there were quite a few, Claude was able to manage most of them. So you can see I asked it to not only fix it, but also check itself as it's fixing it. So it's kind of, again, agentic in a sense, and it's going through a loop of fixing, checking, fixing, and checking. I've only provided a few prompts here to try to get this working. One other thing that, let me see if I can find it. Let's keep scrolling. Yeah, so again, this is all, it's trying to fix some of the issues. Yes, I also hit another usage limit here. Oh yeah, I wanted to Dockerize this, so I added an extra step here to Dockerize and make it easier to kind of just deploy and test. But we hit a limit here again, so this is turning out to be a longer project than intended, but still, you can see from the logs here, Claude is trying to fix and test and fix and test back and forth. I had to add a few prompts, but nothing too crazy. And we finally were able to actually get a working kind of state here. So it's provided kind of how to set it up, how to run the scripts. Also, it's given us the username and credentials for testing. So what I'm going to do is open up a separate window here. And let's run, let's actually run, the Docker setup command. So we want to set up our dev environment, make sure that it's running. So we're going to kick that off. And yeah, there it is. Okay. Docker setup script dev. And so yeah, we'll let this kick off. We'll see if there's any final errors as well as part of this. And we can also check the logs once we get our containers up and running. So hopefully this won't take too long. We'll give it a few minutes here. And yeah, we'll eventually run that setup status command to check the status. But based on the implementation, we should have the front end app, a backend app, an API. And I think we also have a Redis store. If I'm not mistaken, I saw that somewhere. But let's just see what. Oh, there it is. Yeah, Redis. Well, we have a DB, probably Postgres. So let's see what we have out of the box. Yep, all four. Looks good. So, yeah, let's just check out what we have on the UI, right? I don't know how well this thing was created, but let's check. Okay, awesome. We have a landing page here. Let's use our our test accounts to try to authenticate and access the dashboard. Great. So this looks really good. This is a nice clean UI, pretty slick. We have a dashboard, you know, we have contacts, companies, sales pipeline. So this is looking good in terms from like a UX UI perspective. Looks pretty solid. Not all the pages, as you can see, I couldn't access my profile. I don't want to sign out yet. We can play around. Let's see if anything is hooked up, right? So we'll just play around, try to create a test contact here, put the email there. Yep. Yeah, I'm just putting something random here. Let's just try to create it with a note. Let's see what happens. Oh, okay, so we're getting some errors. So this is not all the way hooked up. All right. I mean, I didn't expect this to be perfect, but at least we're getting some errors and also errors out to the user. Let's see if it's the same thing for company. Oh, company was created successfully, but I don't see it show up. Let's see if we refresh. Nope. So maybe there's an issue with the fetch. But as you can see, like, I don't expect this to be 100%, right? This is not 100% there yet, but it's gotten us really, really far. Especially for me, I'm not good at the UI or the UX. This would have taken me a whole long time to even get to this point. So I'm pretty happy with it. I'm pretty happy with our containers that it was created. Again, these errors, you know, this is something we can troubleshoot. I'm not too worried about it. This is already awesome that we got to this point. So I'm pretty excited about it. If you found this video helpful, please click that like and subscribe. It's gonna help me really keep this channel up and running, and it really gives me inspiration knowing that others find what I'm putting out there helpful. Thank you for your support.